There we go. That's a bit better, eh? Yeah. We're big on the screen now. Yay! Good, 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 good. I can see myself. Okay, and then we go all the way back up to 200 or something like that. And we're good. We're good. Just gonna wait a couple of minutes. Just simply because it's good to do so when you start a live stream. Make sure everything's okay before we get into it. Don't worry, we're not gonna wait too long. But just enough. Just enough. Does that actually show on there? Kind of. Kind of. Yeah. It's about habit. That's about habit. We'll just get into it, actually. We'll just get into it. Sup Shredders! My name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SB Livestreams today. We are doing an annual album review. An SB Patron annual album review for Eli. This is Sade. The album's from Sade, titled Love Deluxe. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves Spotify here. The art for Love Deluxe. Now, the annual album reviews are something I do for people who are signed up to our Patreon. At the $12 tier, you get custom monthly music reviews as well as annual album reviews. So if you're looking to get an album done, it can be quite cost effective to go through the Patreon. It's because I don't usually do album reviews at the moment, really, at all. We're going to be listening through every single track off of this album today. We're going to be providing an overall song analysis of each track. There are a total of 9 that I can see here, from No Ordinary Love all the way through to Mermaid, which is cool. So that's cool. And yeah, I suppose, yeah, we're just going to be hearing what we think. Sup, Rum Shaker, how are you? Rum Shaker 96. I'm just going to wait 5 minutes just for Eli. It's okay if he's not here because I know people are busy and stuff like that. I don't have a lot of flexibility on when I do these annual live streams. But yeah, I usually do the annual live streams for people on the end of each month if they're available. I'm fine, thank you, Rum Shaker 96. Yeah, hey, what are you up to this weekend? Are you up to anything exciting? Oh, you do? That's cool. It seems like it's very popular. You can see here that this first track that's 7 minutes long has 278 million plays, which is crazy. Like, that's very unusual for a 7-minute 20 song. I don't know many songs that are that length that have that much love or attention, so I get the feeling that this is quite a popular album. Nice. I'm gonna see hopefully the wrestling goes well for you with mates. I'm going to see the Anaconda movie tomorrow. I think that'll be nice. And my partner and I are going to get some Macca's as well. We don't get like McDonald's often, but it's like the once a month kind of thing. And so it's kind of like a ritual, I suppose. Got her as a vinyl as a hand-me-down and was my intro to her. Yeah. It's good. So like, is he acting good in it? Is he acting a good time? Because I think Jack Black's in it, eh? Hmm. Oh, yeah. Good. I'm glad that they managed to I'm glad that they managed to do something fun with it, and that even though you're a bit unsure about it, it still worked out. That's good. All right. So thank you, I suppose. If you're watching this outside of the live stream, thank you for your patience. We're just going to wait another minute or so, and then we're going to start getting into The actual tracks themselves start with No Ordinary Love. I think it's tricky with a movie like that because, you know, if you don't... Can I actually make that bigger? We could probably make the chat bigger, couldn't you? No, we can't. That's about as big as it gets. It doesn't want to go any bigger than that, unfortunately. I'm sure that if that's on a bigger screen or something like that, you can see it on a bigger screen. It's easy to sort of read the chat on a bigger screen. Yeah. All right, we're gonna do it. No Ordinary Love by Sade. Let's do it. Let's go. Okay. Starting with No Ordinary Love, track number 1 for today. Off of the Love Deluxe. Let's do it. Ah, right. Yeah, it's just, I suppose, just to comment on that. I do find when you redo something, you kind of have to toe the line between paying homage to the original and doing something different so that it has purpose. I feel like people who can do that are very, very skilled as directors or producers and stuff like that. But let's go, No Ordinary Love. Because I haven't heard Sade before, but it'd be good to check it out. She goes down a range really nicely. Great call and response. The guitar tones are interesting. They're kind of heavy, but they're not. guitar is so quiet, but I like how it spreads around the stereo field. What's really cool about that part is that the vocals sound like they're echoing downwards because of the echo repeaters. Is this sort of more vibe oriented, this kind of track? There's a bit of development on toms near the end. Yeah, dun, 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 dun. Okay, that was No Ordinary Love by Sade. Sade? Sade? Is it Sade or Sade? I'm gonna go with Sade. It almost reminds of some early Bjork where vocals sound soft and mellow at times at different ranges. I hear you. I hear you. This is a very mellow track, isn't it? It's very chilled out, you know. At the end of each of these songs, because there's 9 of them, we're going to be providing an overall song analysis from vocals through production as well as well, the applicable constructive critique is like an occasional thing. Sade. Oh, thank you. So I see that's what I mean. Like I look at that phonetically, and I wouldn't know that. Like with SAD, but it's why I'm thankful. Sade. We'll go with that then. That's why I'm thankful people help out. That's good. So what do we want to? What do we think this track's about? Because the overall kind of like, you know, constructive critique and general thoughts are going to be at the end once we've got a bit more of a feel of it. I kind of feel like I got the most of the track through in the first minute. You know, it's just the doubts about love, the connection they have, trying to figure out if it's worthwhile continuing it or not. You know, they keep crying and lying and trying to sort of like cope with the imbalance of the situation, you know, the position they're in within their relationship. It not being ordinary love because of how sort of surreal and uncomfortable it is. Like how when you came my way, you brightened every day with your sweet smile. You know, it's very straightforward, but it's just gone. You know, it's just not there anymore. Things have become stagnant, I suppose. And I think that what the track is trying to do structurally is encompass the actual mood of what the lyrics are trying to represent with a mixture of different chord progressions, the use of those different instruments, the flares and flashes and noises and textures within it. But I think what Sade does so well here is they articulate themselves as a vocalist on the mic with very sort of like competent hinge voice vocal technique, interesting legato passages, call and response patterns with background vocals and harmonies as well. It's just very effective, but it's also so low key. Expression wise, we have a musician that is very comfortable sort of voicing themselves in a way that seems appropriate for the subject matter. There's nothing alien or uncomfortable here. It shows a sincere sort of vulnerability and fragility and how soft we are and how low we go in our range. And some of the parts are very sort of raw sounding. And there's a lack of processing certain parts, I think, to make it sound more quote unquote real, which I think is really cool. There's also a lot of space within this track where Sade does not sing. And I think that that is because we're allowing ourselves to sort of sit within the ether of the thoughts, feelings, and emotions that they're working with at that point in time. So I feel like the vocal technique, the notes that we hit, the way we carry ourselves, or the mixture of different repeated patterns there to sort of establish continuity throughout the track, as well as adjustments through the various verse sections and stuff. I think we've got some really compelling performances on the microphone here that I think is a fantastic first impression of Sade's work, because I've not listened to them before. I've not listened to Sade before. I was 1 year old when they came out. So it's nice to be hearing it for the first time. I'm thankful for it. And again, as I say this to you guys, I say I'm thankful for you guys for showing me new music, because I just haven't had that exposure. You know, I appreciate the opportunity. So I think the vocals are compelling throughout. This track is 7 minutes 20 long, and it's way outside of the sweet spot between way outside of the sweet spot of 2 to 4 minutes, where if it's more than 4 minutes, you really need to either develop a track, add more instruments, adjust the sort of structure and composition, and sort of like the way that it like pushes forward with it. You need to do things within the arrangement to sort of build it and make it really special, and sort of keep the listener engaged. Or alternatively, you really stick to the bit. You create this ether and atmosphere and ambience there, like Sade has within the instrumental arrangement, and you just kind of let it simmer. And you have occasional things kind of wash up or rise to the surface. But for the most part, you've got, again, continuity, texture, and time really throughout various parts. The rhythm sections are mixed. I mean, the drums are fantastic. I like the mixture of different quarters, eighths, and sixteenths that we have there. It's a very gentle, friendly pace as well there. There's never anything too sort of like rough or brash or dramatic there with the kit. And you've just got a mixture of kind of accented like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it might actually, I think it's at 1 end, at 2 end, like the accented eighths with the 16th undertones there, some ghost notes there I really need. But Sade comes in so early into this piece, and you have those synth or keypads there, a very lush kind of 7th sort of voicing to those there with the chords that just in their mid-range, that again they glow in a way that sounds minor oriented, and we go between these different progressions and oscillate in a way where you kind of know that you're going to be staying in there for a while. I mean, you have adjustments to the tails, though, to be fair. The bass line underneath representing the root notes really neatly, exploring, doing some counter melodies to the chord progressions that you have in the top register there, often sort of like in sync with the drum parts, working neatly alongside some of those syncopated on-beat kicks there. And I just like that the bass also has its identity of its own, that things have been well produced enough and recorded in a way where there is room to hear everything, and you got that kind of funkiness of the bass there without it being too exciting or energetic. I I think the guitar parts are neat. You have this kind of occasional chugging there on the sides of the stereo field, and what's kind of interesting about it is that the distorted guitar around this period, especially with like the late early 90s, like the grunge movement had come into play after a lot of kind of like the kind of hair metal of the 80s. And so to get the distorted guitar in there with a kind of bit of fizz and chunk to it is maybe more of an unusual thing, as there was kind of a counter movement towards some of that potentially, but like here, it's almost like tension as opposed to trying to be an established harmonic or instrumental layer. Again, you have lots of sub letters. Sade, yes? Hello, Weber1128, welcome to the live stream. We're reviewing Sade before Love Deluxe. I'm also now hopefully pronouncing Sade correctly. Thanks to Rumpshaker96 for that. We're on track number 1 at the moment, so you've come at a good time. We've just listened through No Ordinary Love. Yeah, I think the guitar layering being as subtle as it is. Oh, is it baby making music? I see. Because I've heard like baby making music from a lot of like male musicians, but I didn't know that it was like the ladies did it as well. I'm just not as familiar with that kind of stuff, but it's cool to learn more, you know. I think the keys are relatively pensive and poignant there. They've got a nice kind of glow in the upper register when you go up the side of the right hand there, and we have some ninth occasionals there. But it's very much kind of minimalist. I think a lot of this track is predominantly based around the tones and textures we present. Certain colors there showing themselves, allowing the vocals to be the focal point there with the consistency of the percussive groove underneath driving us forward in a slower pace. And we like have adjustments of the guitar leads there, but there's nothing that's really trying to overshadow the vocals there. They're just kind of parts of the tapestry, you know. I think the use of the toms in that later section there is kind of neat as a kind of undercurrent with the dun 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 dun, because they're relatively subtle. I think that if they were much louder, the toms in that end section there, they would have been a little bit too kind of brash or abrasive, especially considering because just how kind of punchy they are. So reducing them in the mix was a clever idea. And I think just the strings as well, the sadness they portray through the use of the minor leanings, as well as the kind of just the hum and that low end, how kind of moody they are with the reverb towers and stuff like that, and a low key feeling of that part is really sensible. It having that kind of texture at the end as well insinuates that there is more to come, as it's not something we've heard a lot of before. But I think we just have a great array of different guitar, bass, drum, key, string melodies, and harmonies there, often arpeggiated, not trying to be too sort of blunt with this, unless it's like, getting the vocals focal point. But I think thematically, it's just a piece where it illustrates a sadness with the minor key leaning, but also complication and sophistication with the extensions of the sevenths and ninths and stuff like that. We're not just going 1, 3, 5 triads the whole entire way. And I think Sade is aware of this with the way they voice themselves melodically. We don't always resolve with our melodies, but we do, again, hint at a sadness that is reflected within the chord progressions and bass lines. And ultimately, yeah, just a really sensible, well-constructed piece that makes the most of its 7 minutes. Again, it's a long track, but I don't feel it's too long. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering is tight as well. I love the quality of the production overall from the different vocal takes. It's very 90s with the panning and the EQing and the reverbs and the kind of like the way the keys and drums are presented, and the guitars are kind of wistful as well with the dustiness and graininess of them. But you can hear all the different elements clearly within the frequency spectrum. There's no weird resonant frequencies. The music surrounds you in the headphones. Now things kind of sparkle around the place there. And I dig the amount of dynamic range there. The automation of the volume as we go into the end of the track is really cool. And there's a bit of pumping, a bit of side chaining there. Nice and loud with that pump. Nice and loud with pumping. And it's just a great first impression to their work. Sade's work. I mean, if we're wrong on the pronunciation, something I've learned from YouTube is that people let you know. So if you're watching this and we've both gotten it wrong, please let me know. I'm happy to adjust my voicing of it for any potential future Sade reviews. And Kiss of Life, my favorite. Cool. Well, I mean, we're headed towards that. We've got another 8 tracks to go, though. And just, do you think because it's a slower, more vibes type of song that it makes it longer in a way, it makes it more like a journey almost? Yeah, absolutely. I think that if you've got a slower track, it's great because you've got this kind of it's great because you take your time with it and appreciate it. You can't get lost in the music and it surrounds you in the headphones, and especially Igor, yeah, absolutely. It does seem pretty good. It's a really solid track. Again, it's such a ballsy move to have a longer track at the start of a piece, start of an album there. I think if if you sort of vibe to it, if you relate to it, if you enjoy it, I just guess after that first 7-minute track, you're gonna appreciate the rest there. It's a good show of force. We got track number 2 though, Feel No Pain. Hopefully you're all having a good weekend so far. Let's do it. Feel No Pain. And drums. Well, that bass line underneath is so active.
Mama been laid off, Papa been laid off, my brother's been laid off for more than 2 years now. Ooh, can't get a job, Billy can't get a job. Ooh, yeah. They gotta listen to the blues, help them to strive, help them to move on, help them to have some future, help them to live long, help them to live life, help them to smile. Don't let them stay home and listen to the blues.
Great undercurrent, 16th note, groove there.
Mama been laid off, Billy can't get a job for too long, too long. Don't let them lose, we gotta give them a chance. It's gonna come back on everyone if we don't make them dance. Don't let them stay home and listen to the blues.
Fantastic use of a pregnant pause there. Well done.
There's nothing sacred within hatred. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. We have to face it. No one can take it and feel no pain. Mama been laid off, Papa been laid off, my brother's been laid off for more than 2 years now. Ooh, can't get a job, Billy can't get a job. They gotta listen to the blues, help them to strive, help them to move on, help them to have some future, help them to live long, help them to live life, help them to smile. Don't let them stay home and listen to the blues.
Oh, fantastic.
One day we're gonna wake up and the ghetto's all around, all over, my friend. Have you ever seen a man break down? Do you know how that feels to walk the street with your head held high?
Great bluesy phrasing on that guitar there. And the strings left to resolve it there is the question, did you ever see a man break down, is uttered. Crazy, dude. Very different track there to the previous one there. I like how it seems like we're discussing different subject matter. I was kind of thinking, is No Ordinary Love, with the album being, again, Love, going to be about the relationship that, you know, was super kind of like extraordinary, but it just seems like we're discussing different types of love, you know? And this track, I get the feeling that it's about talking about how their family, how the people they know, struggling to be able to find a way, a future in the world as it is. And I think this was released in 1992. It just goes to show that people have been struggling with this stuff for like a long, long time, you know. It's difficult to get work. Even in the 90s, where like there was a lot of like, yeah, it's because economically, my understanding is the 90s were quite good. But yeah, no, I could be tripping, to be fair. But yeah, just people, you know, they want a better future. And I think the first half of this track is discussing the difficulties, the trials and tribulations they've gone through. The second half sort of discussing how this is probably going to affect everyone at some point, how we struggle to kind of get a job and how we struggle to find life and things aren't improving. And they, you know, they just are asking, do you know how it feels to walk the street with your head held high? And again, watching someone break down is just, it's terrible. It's terrible that people have to go through this difficulty when they just want to have a roof over their head and find some success in life, and that, especially if they're willing to work for it. It's brutal. It's an interesting comment, you know, her voice makes you crave romance. Like, I get behind that, but I also like how versatile it is. We have different subject matters there, and it's more a love and a sadness for the people around her in this situation. I think that this vocal performance, so some of the stuff that I'm going to say for the remainder of these tracks, like I'm going to talk about the individual components. It might just not be as textured as the first one, primarily because it's the similar feedback. You know, I'll still talk about it in full in the overall conclusion at the end. But like, I feel like if I say the exact same stuff about her vocals 9 times each per track there, especially when the vocal performance is consistent and she's a great singer, it might be a little bit overplayed, you know what I mean? And I really gotta watch my voice because I've been doing a lot of reviews recently. Like, we're about 3 weeks ahead with Fiverr stuff. It's been crazy, dude. It's been crazy recently, yeah. Alright, so Feel No Pain. I think that this track is more about asking what it'd be like to feel no pain. And the vocal performance is just stunning. Like, Sade is very comfortable getting a hit in chest voice, great legato technique. There's more harmonies in this one. I think there are some male vocalists, if I'm not mistaken, some female vocalists. And I think that having like men and women kind of sing together kind of shows a unity in the difficulty of the struggle that they're having there. That kind of everyone's sort of singing about it and trying to come together despite how difficult things are to discuss it, because it's an important topic, you know, trying to help people to strive and find a future for themselves and amongst the trouble and turmoils. And I think that that's a beautiful sentiment, just very clever from a compositional performance perspective. The why I kind of part down the end as a calm response to nothing sacred, breathing hatred, etc., is very sensible. I think ultimately there's just some really interesting note and melody choices here. Some sequences from Sade that are very sort of pensive and thoughtful and sort of like thought provoking, should I say. I like the repetition, the repetition of that kind of cadence and rhythmically there. I dig that we're repeating that in different sections to help segment and differentiate parts of the track. It's a very satisfying a very simple, kind of easy to follow along to vocal melody that I think people who are familiar with the lyrics can sort of sing along to as well. It's almost kind of hypnotic in its approach. And yeah, ultimately just, again, structurally, it's just great to also split the track into kind of like the parts it is there with the different perspectives. Especially with that bass line that we have at the start there. It kind of rolls around and kind of, it wiggles around in a very kind of solemn but also charismatic way. It's just got a great kind of rumble to it, that bass line at the start. dun 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 dun. And we've got the hand drums as well, from more sort of like earthy kind of grounded feel to it. And I like just how we're not over articulating initially the instrumental parts, especially when we've got like a song with big subject matter like this.
more than 2 years now. Ooh.
More of those interesting sort of like piano sort of extended chords, the kind of jazziness infused with the R&B, as well as the ooh. There's some like fourth harmonies with the vocals. We aren't just sort of doing octaves. We have that kind of fourth harmony or something with the vocals to make them sort of stand out a little bit, you know, that kind of vocal note.
Help them to have some future. Help them to live long.
I mean, it's just very sensible, isn't it? Just, you know, that unison there with people kind of single-minded in that response there, that ask that question about it. And as you kind of go for the track with the 1 and 2 and on the drums, it's relatively, it seems a little bit quicker than the previous one, but at the same time, there's still an undercurrent of that 16-note groove to the bass there that keeps kind of a permanence to that.
Don't let them lose. We gotta give them a chance. They gotta listen to me.
I think the syncopated parts of the hand drums in combination with the drums is a smart move as well. It giving different layers of percussion with different types is just, it's a great way to add more without it being redundant there or overplayed there. Because the last thing we want is the drum kit to be too sort of like forward in the mix. And I think if you tried to do it on the same drum kit with the toms and stuff like that, it just wouldn't have necessarily worked as well. It's difficult to get different percussive elements to work together. You've got to really be sort of like thoughtful about it, but they managed that here. I think the really subtle strings that we had at the end of the previous song come in here, and they're more sort of like they're a constant as well, but again they're like a sub layer. They're not too loud. I like that they're sort of more low key there. They add depth and dimensionality to the mix and arrangement. And the kind of flurry and glissando of certain key elements that we have rising up with the Y part there, as well as adjustments of the instrumental layering in general there, with the drums not being there the entire time, the bass being constant throughout there. It just changes things up without it being too blunt of a chord change or a key change or something like that.
Help them to strive. Help.
Just doing a little check. Yeah, I think that we had a Hammond in there, a Hammond organ as well. There was some oscillation on the sides there on the stereo field there. I liked the rhythm of that sort of like tone there and the way it interacts with a lot of the other percussive elements and the way the vocals kind of dance over top of those. There are some interesting kind of like clean bluesy takes on the guitars there, as well as chords and sort of arpeggiated parts there. They add a bit of sort of more acoustics and like grounded tone to that as well there. I think note choices are important. It's not like we're over articulating parts there. It's more to sort of represent the fact that like, oh, there's a bluesy moment there, especially when we talk about singing the blues. I mean, that's the most obvious sort of way, I think, to kind of describe that, is having the blues scale when we talk about taking the blues with the guitar. It's just sensible there. Yeah, no, very, very, very good. I think just at the end point there with that kind of cymbal shimmer, but going into that final "Oh, did you ever see a man break down?" there, the sadness, like the just how kind of broken things are there. You know, asking, so, oh Lord have mercy, sort of bringing a sort of religious element into it, looking to a higher power for support. Again, you said Sade doesn't protest loudly, she quietly exposes the reality. I think a lot of this stuff is relatively subtle, and then, you know, it's brought, these are hinted at by parts of the song instrumentally within the music. And then you're kind of left at the end with the impression that, oh wait, actually no, you kind of absorb it all at once and you get it at the end. I think that's the way to look at this music. Thematically, again, it's compelling in the sense that I just feel like a different approach allows you to be sort of more like, oh, no, that's not the right way to say it. Thematically minor oriented, The combination of instruments is similar to the previous track, so it establishes connection within the album. Rhythmically, the bass kind of continuing throughout the entirety of the track almost sort of insinuates that thing they don't think it will change. But the minor leaning and the bluesy guitar parts there were sort of showing a sort of an just a general unhappiness with the environment they were in a different way to the prior one. And still very low key and sort of tender in tone there, not too harsh or abrasive with any of the elements there, which I think makes it easier to listen to, and it makes you kind of want to hear more of the struggle that they're dealing with there. I do like those higher, you know, higher octave parts or the high kind of range parts here, just for a bit of coloration in the upper register there. It just explores the frequency spectrum really well. And yeah, generally, I think, again, it's well measured by the extensions within the harmonies. They're adding a bit of kind of like, it's not too blunt with its sort of like leaning with the key signature. Studio production's tight. Similar comments to, you know, the previous track there, the different hand drums, guitar, bass, drum, key, string, you know, all the other kind of the organs, etc. They're all well represented in the mix and the stereo field and frequency spectrum there, no resonant frequencies. And I like the vocal overdubs and how they kind of spread around the stereo field as well in different positions. It's very cool. A nice and loud bit of pumping there. Composition, dynamic range. No complaints at all about this one as well. Very cool. We got I Couldn't Love You More by Sade. Track number 3 though, for today though. Really good so far. Oh. We're going 1-2s backwards and forwards, aren't we, with these chord progressions? Nice alternative texture with the claps as well, with the percussion.
Take me by the hand, come on. Be my darling, be the one. I wouldn't wanna lay or ever love with another. If everyone in the world could give me what I wanted, I wouldn't want for more than I have.
Great panning there.
Love you more if I tried. Couldn't love you more, boy. Couldn't love you more, boy. 'Cause darling, I'm on your side. I really am on your side. My love, I'm on your side. Oh, right now, baby. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I couldn't love
Is that the
you
first time we've
more,
heard saxophone?
boy. Stay silent.
Like in a track so far? I think that would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't love you more, boy. I couldn't love you more. I couldn't love you more, boy. Stay exactly how you are. Yeah, yeah. I couldn't love you more, boy. I couldn't love you more.
Much more straightforward than previous tracks. I wonder if this was initially meant to be like a single or something like that. But yeah, no, that was I Couldn't Love You More by Sade. Hold someone you love, if not hold a pillow tonight. Absolutely. It's very affectionate music. It's very intimate. I dig it. Really special stuff. So, what do we think this track is about in that tone? I mean, clearly it's about, you know, loving someone more, wanting to sort of be led by the hand, really committing yourself to that person. It's just after the first track and then talking about the future and wanting a better future for people that they know, I just think these are different angles of love. It's in that moment where, as opposed to when you are missing that person, that extraordinary love, you are with that person, and it's just it's wonderful. It's very tender and quiet. There's no moments where like the vocals are super in your face or it's sort of extra. And I think that's a sensible decision primarily because of the fact that we're trying to sort of like make that kind of, again, people would talk about like the baby making music. It's just cool. And again, similar comments to previous tracks in terms of Sade's vocal performance, very comfortable in the head and chest voice. I like that it was, again, minimalist with the approach there. It was conversational. There were some parts where like the vocals went onto the left side of the stereo field, just from a panning perspective. That was very neat. And there's a, yeah, it's very soothing expression, texture, and timbre within the mix. It's also nice to have a saxophone solo as an alt lead. I know that's not directly related to vocals, but just simply understanding, Sade simply understanding that they'd said enough at that point, you know, to get that point across and to allow the saxophone to take heed and play melodies in a similar kind of vocal range. But just a different kind of affectation to it there, the kind of romanticism, the kind of the mistiness of that, you know, it's just, there's just something so pretty about the note choice of the saxophone as well, that legato technique, the smoothness of it. It's very cool, especially in a short form factor like this, because this track is 3 minutes 48. There's absolutely no filler within it. It's right within that 2 to 4 minute sweet spot. And yeah, honestly, no complaints about this one at all there. I think we have a similar kind of approach with the subtle sub-16ths with like a chord note accent overall on the drums there. But we have claps instead of snares, which is kind of neat. It's not a conventional way of approaching a sort of a kit, but I think using samples in this situation, the snare is quite an intense sounding part of the drum kit, kind of sharp sounding. So we aren't going for that here, you know. We are wanting to sort of more focus on the cymbals, the kicks, the snares, and sort of old percussion and melodic percussion there, and not overwhelm things too much. And like when I mean the 16ths, you can hear the main eighths on the hi-hats and stuff like that, and some syncopated kicks and stuff like that, but those 16ths are absolutely ghost notes, incredibly quiet ones there. And I like the depth and dimensionality of the drum performance as well within this piece. It's very good. What's kind of cool about the synth sequences in this one is that they're relatively subtle because of the position in the frequency spectrum that they're in. But they kind of rotate and oscillate in a similar way to the bass lines that we had in the previous track there. There's just there's a connection through it. But I think the major leaning with this track from a key signature perspective makes it a bit more kind of gentle and fun, I suppose. It's quietly vibrant. Similar affectation to the keys in previous tracks here, highlighted certain chords within the progression. To be fair, I think also I should note that Sade, I think in this track went a bit further into like head voice than previous tracks. And I think it's cool that we just have occasionals there. We have this kind of very pleasing mid-range that Sade spends most of the time in from a vocal perspective, almost like it's like a sung conversation that they're having with another. But when they go up in that range and they become a bit more kind of like breathy or a bit more kind of like present, it's like that's almost like we're not trying to go be more forceful with our words or our technique. We're just switching into a position that could be more easily heard. There is this kind of two-chordal thing going on as well. I know it's sort of equally a thematic thing as well as a function of like the basses, for example, which have this kind of plonk, kind of squarishness to them that allows them to be kind of mildly percussive. but also, yeah, because I don't think you could have held the bass there. Sometimes you have a situation with tracks where, like, if the bass guitar holds at notes, it just sounds a bit too kind of muddy and kind of awkward. So being a bit more kind of like short with the bass notes there allows the keys to sort of even tail themselves out. And like the kind of little clicky sounds as well, bits of ear candy as well there to decorate the stereo field there. And it's just nice to have those little perky bits there, especially if they are not on a part of the frequency spectrum where other things exist.
Be my darling boy.
And I've just noticed as well, we do something really interesting with vocals on that sort of like end part there, where we have two different vocal takes kind of quietly working with each other, but it just makes the vocals sound huge in that bit. Almost like they're having a conversation right beside you. It's very cool.
I couldn't love you more, baby.
We really aren't trying to sort of add too much compositional diversity from an actual like mood perspective. It's meant to be a very kind of like constant sort of pacing and phrasing to it that I think, again, it's just easy listening, right?
Be the
But these sub resonances with like the basses and the dum dum kind of sort of like blockish kind of synths there are just a nice sort of undercurrent to a lot of the slowness and sort of like presence of those keys of the vocal parts there. And just that theme again, the extensions, chords going 1, 2, etc. It's like a pendulum swinging back and forth there. It's very sleepy sounding, very jazzy. It's just classy. And the saxophone reinforces that with its sort of presence and tone and sort of like no choices. But ultimately, yeah, I feel like the major learning here makes sense thematically because of the fact that we are sort of celebrating our connection with that person that we have. And yeah, I agree with you. She barely sings loudly and overpowered, but very believable. Yeah, it is. I think that when you are confident in your assertions, you don't need to be too loud anyways. You know, you don't need to scream it at people. I don't think it would assert in this. I think the entire album's going to be like this. It's very peaceful, charming music. Same comments with studio production, recording, mixing, and mastering as prior. No complaints on my end about the way things have handled from a studio perspective. You know, I do like that how things spread around the stereo field, the vocals on the left side as well there. The way that even if we have space, we put it in that niche there that kind of clicks or something like that. But that also that we've EQ'd and compressed the vocals well, that even if we go into a higher range, it's not too kind of like, it doesn't bust out of its shell or anything like that. And again, the panning of the double tracked vocals at the end as well is sort of like neat. Just the way they kind of aren't in the center anymore, because the vocals usually are in the center of the stereo field. They're the thing you want to pay most attention to. Going out that way kind of lets things know they're kind of coming to a close. And great balancing the sub bass and the low end as well there, you know. It's awesome stuff. Very, very good. No complaints about the studio production there as well. Just a really, it's nice to hear a lower, smaller form factor song. It's nice to know that Sade can do both 7-minute 20 tracks as well as 3 minutes 48. Very good. We got track number 4, Like a Tattoo. Let's go. All the flamenco guitar.
He told me sweet lies of sweet loves, heavy with a burden of the truth. And he spoke of his dreams, broken by the burden, broken by the burden of his youth. We saw him laying at the end of my gun, hungry for life.
Ooh, cool chord changer there.
Thirsty for the distant river. I remember his hands and the way the mountains look.
Parallel major.
The light shot diamonds from his eyes. Hungry for life, thirsty for the distant river.
And pulling back again.
Like the scar of age
Oh, those
all
skis.
over my face. The war is still raging inside of me. I still feel the chill as I reveal my shame to you. I wear it like a tattoo. I wear it like a tattoo. I wear it like a tattoo.
And at the end comes in the hook line. That's kind of clever. It's like you're wondering how that relates to like a tattoo, and then you get it at the end. That's neat. Song is about listening to someone's painful life story. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It does definitely sound like that. Like a tattoo. He told me sweet lies are sweet loves, heavy with the burden of the truth, and he spoke of his dreams broken by the burden of his youth. I get the impression with all the wonderful imagery, like, I remember his hands and the way the mountains looked. The light shot diamonds from his eyes, hungry for life and thirsty for the distant river. It's incredibly pretty poetry there. Wonderful, eloquent lyricism there. Like the scar of age written all over my face, the war is still raging inside of me. I can feel the chill as I reveal my shame to you. This is about someone kind of processing that what happened in their youth and trying to sort of like heal from that as an adult, to sort of re-adult themselves to a certain extent. And I think that this is something that a lot of people will be able to relate to, both then and now, because growing up can be fucking brutal, dude. Growing up can be incredibly brutal. I just love these lines. The light shot diamonds from his eyes, hungry for life. It's just so cool. Such clever. Like, it's so vivid, dude. They didn't need to go that hard on it, but they did. Sade is wonderful. Sup, Blue Dinner Box. Welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you're well. Just incredible music. So, like, the vocal performance here, again, competent hidden chest voice, very comfortable in their vocal range there. I love the breathiness of some of those lower octave parts, lower range parts there. The bit of vocal fry we have occasionally, almost like we're breaking as we sort of like communicate this. I also think it's great to have a piece where we have like a kind of like a breathier kind of lower range, and then the higher end kind of like a different textural structural contrast. They were voicing things in literal different ways to give different interpretations of it, and how they coalesce is just wonderful, dude. I like how we also navigate some of those parallel majors and unusual sort of chord progressions and adjustments there that are very cool, but are almost would be blunt if things weren't so smooth and easy listening oriented. You know, like there's no harsh textures or timbres. And again, like parallel majors are a classic kind of like going outside of the box way to sort of approach kind of like back and forths. But But I just, again, these harmonies, these fourth harmonies, these combinations that Sade puts forward on the mic are great. They're effervescent. And I can imagine, I can understand how this track has had like 418 million plays. Like, it's the biggest track off of the album. But I like how, Sup Ray Nigel 6809, by the way, just want to say as well, in case I'm not saying your name correctly, it's because YouTube doesn't let me see your proper usernames. So when I say Weber1128, like, I don't think that, like, you know what I mean? So I'm sorry if I don't call you by the name you've got for your like main sort of like profile. It's just I've got the ones here. Just want to say this painful life story is about someone's previous experience with war, like a tattoo that they couldn't remove from themselves. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's good to know. I really appreciate that. I just wouldn't have known otherwise. Did I put it for 2:30 or 3:30 on Discord? I did. I'm just checking. Hi Eli, welcome. So I have actually reviewed a few of these tracks. We've still got most of them to go. Just letting you know, as this is your annual album review, I really enjoyed No Ordinary Love as well as Feel No Pain and I Couldn't Love You More. I think they're wonderful songs. I think it was just fantastic how they approached No Ordinary Love. The great use of real estate there. It was such an easy listen, wasn't it? But like a tattoo, like a war tattoo. No, not a war tattoo is a different thing. I think I'm confusing it. But yeah. But given what you've said about his previous experience from war, shot diamonds from his eyes, thirsty for the distant river, I get it now. That makes more sense. It's good to know. Yeah, hopefully you're doing well. I love the vocal performance is wonderful. I like the structure of the piece there, where we've got a mixture of different like sort of like lead and sub lead elements as well as Sade. It's nice to balance the track out between those different elements. It's just very clever, especially with that kind of flamenco guitar, the wistful, kind of like, not melancholic. It's not melancholic at all. We navigate some of those minor as well as potentially harmonic or melodic minor scales neatly. No, they're typically minors there. But again, the use of the extensions there just makes it sound very classy. But the guitars are also kind of quiet, like they're sort of timid, wanting to sort of check out whether they can actually put their face out or not. Yeah, the guitars are very kind of quiet within this, the different strummed parts there. I like that we don't have a drum kit within this as far as I'm aware. We might later on, but I don't remember. Yeah, it's mainly guitar, bass, and the keys there in certain sections there. But I think just allowing the guitars with the flanger to kind of sit there and be their own sort of presence is neat. They fill up well. The strumming is a great rhythm, and the bass when it comes in just has room to fill the lower end of the frequency spectrum as well, so there's no competition for that. Having that with only sort of a percentage of the track helps segment it. It's almost like the stillness of the piece without a percussion gives you more time to sort of think through it. I love those synth pads though. The way they kind of flutter in the mix there. They just kind of, you get lost in them. They're so lush. They're so lush, dude. But again, like, even if we have solos, it still, again, seems like Sade is the main focal point. It's more the guitar sort of singing to you, or the keys sort of like voicing themselves a bit more up in the register for a kind of a starry feel, like kind of making it feel like a very sort of like nighttime track. But I do like thematically, sort of chord progression wise, that we don't just rely on the same two chords for the entire time. We switch things up there, and it's a deliberate segmentation of the track approach there, where it's kind of blunt. But as I mentioned, because there's a lack of harsh textures within the piece, it's still kind of acceptable. You're not too distracted or affronted by it. And so I just think, again, without the use of a drum kit or like fills or something like that, or without a solo really being too present or kind of dominant, trying to pull us into it, like we need these sort of not so subtle kind of indicators there. But yeah, well structured, well voiced. No complaints whatsoever about the performance, not a note out of place. It's clever music. It creates a nice atmosphere. The studio recording, mixing, and mastering, just use of flanging on elements there with the way that the guitars, bass, keys, and everything are presented is really pretty. It's again kind of a bittersweet experience because it's so pleasant to listen to, but you know the people going through it have been struggling. And Sade, again, the reverbs kind of make it seem like these are introspection stuff that they're going through in their own head and putting onto the microphone. The great dynamic range with the keys, and especially though kind of like nylon string guitar parts at the start. And I like that things are more kind of vibrant when the bass and the string pads come in to sort of like again add dynamic range, and that's a bit of extra sort of segmentation as well. The transfers are clean. We don't have sort of conventional predictable transitions as well. I think like before that final sort of chorus part, there was an uneven amount of times through the loop or something like that before we switched, which was nice. And yeah, just generally, yeah, well voiced, no resonant frequencies, and it's nice and loud, you know, just no pumping because of the lack of bass, but just very pleasant. It's 4 for 4 as far as I'm concerned. A Nigerian background, many love and painful stories. Yeah, from the sounds of it, absolutely. A long time ago, I met a man in a bar in New York. He told me his story. This is his song. It's about war and what he had to go through. Damn, man. And I just love how respectful Sade was about it. By the way, am I pronouncing Sade correctly, Eli? Hopefully I am. This is what we've been working with for the majority of the review. If I'm mispronouncing it, please let me know. It's far better than the pronunciation I initially thought it was, because I'm yeah, I just was ignorant of the way the Sade worked with the phonetics. The song reminds me of Africa sometimes, the barren hollow mountains for sure. Yeah, I could, because the way things oscillate and go between the peaks, so I hear you. So that's great. That's cool though. We got Kiss of Life though, track number 5. Ooh. More of a conventional approach to the keys with this one. Great rhythmic cadence to that. And use of Beltry there. Right off to the saxophone. Nice. Her voice is so soft in it. It's got great texture to it.
Reach to your heart all the way. How many times love inside I can say. You gave me the kiss of life, kiss of life. You gave
Love that
me
organ on the side as well, that's cool.
kiss of life. You gave me the kiss of life, kiss of life. You gave me the kiss that's life, kiss of life.
The Valkyrie is a trend.
You gave me the kiss of life, kiss
I think the lyrics are kind of bugging out a little bit here.
You gave me the kiss that's life, kiss of life.
I mean, I get the feel of it anyways, it's just interesting.
Wrap me up in color of love, I must have been an angel, came down from above.
You just feel like you're in safe hands when you're at the halfway point of an album, and you just feel really relaxed and nice and chill, eh? Nice use of fade out at the end. Very, very good. So yeah, that was Kiss of Life by Sade. Major leaning makes total sense considering the subject matter. I mean, there must have been an angel by my side, something heavenly led me to you. Look at the sky, it's the color I love. So it's clearly effervescently very satisfied in this plot twist here, this kind of massive, really great feeling they have. It's an interesting follow on from Like a Tattoo, I will note. I wasn't necessarily expecting this kind of subject matter after this, but it's great. It's kind of like a mild variety box album. I just think we're exploring love in different ways and different tales, and maybe they felt awkward having all the literal kind of relationship oriented ones and then the kind of more sort of like outdoorsy ones. They're kind of doing like an A-B side thematically or lyrically. But yeah, it's very much a dedication to the person who is like an angel by their side there. We have some really cool vocal parts here. Like, I love some of the harmonies we have here, just the kind of call and response, not the call and response, the kind of A-B side harmonies in the chorus, and then like the iteration on that. I think that the kind of vocal melodic riffing they have at the end of the track there, the last minute before the You Wrap Me Up in the Color I Love was kind of nice to be more of a sort of like an instrument in the mix, or as opposed to a storytelling device. And we had some parts we went up into our upper range and we're just very comfortable and confident there. We seem to be very, again, as I mentioned prior, very sort of like comfortable in our mid-range there, but we know to sort of ascend occasionally when we need to add a bit of kind of extra presence to it. But it's just very kind of breathy there. We have this really sweet, soft texture to it that is very intimate. And ultimately, yeah, just another solid performance on the microphone. And it's been really well recorded as well. And also, I want to note there that just the way it's been voiced and sort of like put forward, I don't think there's any post-processing on Sade's voice. They just clearly can sing. there is nothing I can hear that's insinuating to me that they needed any help hitting these in post. It's just very, very, very good. You know, just a really well captured vocal performance. And I think that, like, again, the chirpiness of the keys kind of insinuates a positivity about the situation we're with this other person there. And it's a great sort of accompaniment throughout this 5-minute 50 track where I think expression-wise, it's very appropriate. You can relate to what Sade is talking about and how they're sort of discussing it. But it's just nice to have a relatively chill, upbeat track at this midway point of the album there. I think this is why it's important to give an album a couple of songs at least before you kind of decide whether you want to continue or not, just sort of establish different patterns. But a lot of this track is more sort of about the groove of the drums, working those quarters 8/16s, consistency with those different sort of like cymbal patterns, you know, the bass underneath kind of navigating the relevant scales and modes effectively. We have great use of bell trees in this track. The transitions to an element are just I like the glitter of it. You know, we haven't really had bell trees that much in this album, and I did miss them. I think as well, having things sort of feed off of each other, like the saxophone solos and leads in various parts, they're voicing themselves as an independent part, maybe riffing off different sort of like vocal melodies and parts of the track, but also maybe veering off in a different direction. But for the keys to feel confident enough to sort of work alongside those and decorate the other side of the stereo field to that is great. And there's just kind of a glow to the saxophone as well as the volume control on it. No, not sort of belt and kind of have it rise up with a slower kind of envelope is really sensible. There's like a 16-note groove that's not directly implied by one instrument but carried across a variety of others. We have those interesting sort of like plucked guitar parts on the side as well there that are more of a kind of a funky device, a rhythmic device that aren't there the entire time. They come in about like a minute in. But it's just that little bit extra that you can kind of squeeze in there to refine a piece, because at 5 minutes 50, it's a longer track. But I don't think there's any sort of like filler at the same time.
Came down from above. He led me to you.
Again, and just like, again, the combination of these keys, the bass, the guitar, the saxophone, the drums is a very familiar one at this point. Like, I'm very comfortable going, oh, I know what Sade is going to put forward there. And I think we have hand drums as well, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's just, it's actually just the acoustic kit in this one. No, we did. We had hand drums at the end of it. That's right. We did. I knew that we had those sub 16th rhythms in there. Good. Good. I had that kind of caught out for a moment. My memory is not fried. It is not failing me. But like to kind of have I don't want to go that deep down the rabbit hole in that rhythmic front there. Just having, again, different rhythmic devices, not just relying on the main sort of ones or ands there, and kind of having one doing the E ands of the 16th note sort of counting and the other kind of working the main sort of like 8th notes is cool. So rhythmically, really satisfying. I like the trade-off between lead elements such as the saxophone and the vocals there. I just think things are well voiced and oriented with space within the composition's tight. Thematically, it's the shimmer and the sheen of the keys kind of lets you know almost immediately this is going to be a more upbeat track. I like the pulse and the fervor of them, the kind of faith and the attentiveness that we have towards the subject matter. I think here Sade is still not over-expressing herself. It's not an incredibly intense performance or anything like that. We're trying to sort of keep a similar approach with the relative loudness, I suppose, or just our sort of like style. But I think the instruments do a lot of heavy lifting here in terms of kind of like the approach or how you're supposed to feel after listening through it. There's like a minor chord, I think, for a lot of these loops there that kind of fades out back into the major. And I think even with extension softening the minors there, you just kind of feel great after listening through it. You can hear the appreciation in her voice while still trying to be true to the jazzy leanings of it with some of the sevenths and stuff. Again, with a literal saxophone as well, to be fair. But it's incredibly rhythmically complex. I think it's just great, really well produced, and the studio recording, mixing, and mastering is wonderful as well. again, all these things kind of music appearing around the stereo field there, the music's around you in the headphones, just you're enveloped in it, in their world that they're trying to create there. The vocals aren't overproduced, they can clearly sing. Great sort of dynamic range, with the resonant frequencies, nice and loud, bit of pumping there. Well, actually not really. It's been glued neatly so that it doesn't pump, but you can still feel the rhythm behind it. And they know what their focal points are. So yeah, just another really solid track. Now there are 4 more to go plus the conclusion. I'll be right back. Just gotta go get something, and then we will continue with the rest of the album. If you guys want something to do in the meantime, if you're watching this, maybe feel free to let me know what your favorite track is in the chat if you haven't already. Be good. Be right back. Okay, back. We're back now. We are back to continue the live stream. Good. Good to good to good. There we are. So, sorry about that, guys. I'm just gonna check that things are still good there. We are still live. Awesome. Good, good, good. Because you never know. Like, I think there have been occasionally live streams where, like, I have realized relatively late into the game that I either haven't been, like, streaming or it hasn't been live. And so, yeah. Let us continue, though. I've also been trying not to stroke out too much when I, when I review these. Especially with more recent reviews. Because I find that there's like a review and then there's just a plethora of information that's maybe unnecessarily just kind of facilitates just the superfluous amount of information. So I'm trying to sort of be more succinct. Be sure to cherish the day, track number 6. Interesting use of guitar bends there for a moment. Oh, okay. Wait. Sorry, wait. I just, whoa. Hang on. You're ruling the way that I move and I breathe your air. You only can rescue me. This is my prayer if you are mine. What does that insinuate? Does that insinuate without that person they do want to go to heaven? That's dark, dude.
Show me how deep love can be.
Go back to the wistful guitar lines. Is that a Reese? A Reese synthesizer or something like that, very vaguely? It is, isn't it? Portamento on it. I don't know if you can hear the hi-hats and how they oscillate on the sides of the stereo field. Oh, that guitar though.
You show me how deep love can be. You show me how deep love can be. This is my prayer. I cherish the day. I won't go astray. I won't be afraid. Won't run away. Won't shy. Cherish the day. I won't go astray. I cherish the day. I cherish the day. I cherish the day. I cherish the day.
And next did it fade out there, nice.
I cherish the day.
And there we are. So I can't tell whether this is like, I don't know how to take this because like sometimes I hear lyrics like these, especially with the "This is my prayer," where it could be like from a religious perspective, but then also they don't want to go to heaven effectively. I'm gonna take that as like a kind of play on words. I don't know, this is the prayer one, but I wouldn't want to go anywhere if I was with you. Yeah, so I think that's basically it. We're talking about how we cherish today with this person, how much they mean to us, and how, you know, even though we kind of look to the sky for better options and stuff like that, and we're kind of struggling with things down here, um, we appreciate having that person in our life, and we won't run away, we won't go astray, because they've shown how deep love can be, and yeah, they're gonna be there for them when they need to, and yeah, make the most of it. I think that the simplicity of the lyrics in combination with the vocal performance, the way they kind of like voice these is fantastic. There's no need to sort of overcomplicate subject matter like this, especially when, again, you're trying to sort of speak directly to someone. Some of the wordplay is solid. I can, again, wouldn't want to go to heaven part about after the prayer bit. And a lot of this track is more about the ambience they created with all the different instrumental layers and how they sort of integrate together and provide a nice ground floor for Sade to do their thing on. We have a similar kind of situation with the previous track here, with this one at 5.5 minutes is outside of 2 4-minute sweet spot. But it's about establish that kind of like, again, mood, as I mentioned, through the different instrumental parts, the combination and the platform for Sade to speak the truth on. So it's totally fine. Like the length of it is totally, it's okay. And we have a similar kind of approach to the percussion there with the mixtures of quarters, eighths, and sixteenths. Occasional on beats and syncopateds there. What's kind of different about this one is that we have the guitar a bit more kind of present there. And some interesting sort of like bendy techniques there. A bit of tension there going up the half there, but it's not too much. And we never have too many tracks kind of overstay their welcome in this piece there. I think we even have kind of like a heavily kind of wah pedal oriented guitar solo, like in the late stages there, where you could potentially have done more with, but I don't think Sade wanted to do that. Therefore, it's more of a kind of a different texture or color within the piece there for us then to go back into another line and sort of get more either repetition of existing sort of like lines or a different angle. I think with the drums, with the sort of like quarters, eighths, and sixteenths that I was talking about there, we only have the open hi-hat on the right side of the stereo field. I know that for you guys this is the left, but it's the right for me. And the reason that's kind of relevant is that that's not typically the side of the stereo field that the open hi-hat is on. It's an unconventional approach to the panning of that, but I just like how we go, you know, it's kind of a fun design decision there. It makes it less kind of rigid and sort of kind of stale than just having it in one area and kind of relying on that to be enough. I think the softness of the keys adds kind of a dreamy element to it, playing those major and minor triads, I suppose, with some parallels there. And I think it suits the softness of Sade's vocals as well. The bass line underneath is very busy and similar to other tracks there. We do not sleep on the bass guitar throughout this album. It's incredibly energetic and charismatic. And it just shows, it's also tight rhythmically. The note choices are compelling. It's got a great sort of rhythm and flow to it. And we explore up the register as well as some octaves as well. We're not just going with the low string. We're happy to sort of like see what else is possible and what's not sort of like overcoloring the arrangement. And occasionally the bass does come up with the vocals to sort of provide unison there, but not to an extent where it over kind of like complicates it. So yeah, it's more of a quote-unquote vibe track where it's almost like what you get at the first minute is what you keep for the rest of the 4, and it's sort of us more of an experiment of us kind of either meditating on it or sort of cherishing the situation we're in. There's less harmonic and thematic kind of like complexity of this piece, which I think is sensible. We don't need to sort of like over-egg the pudding here. And I just think you sit listening through this, and maybe we'll get more sort of like range with the next one, but still very pleasant to listen to. I think that some of the notes, such as the guitar takes, highlight the extensions or seventh notes within these chord progressions in the background, but it's very inoffensive. It's very inoffensive. It's kind of floaty again because of the mid-range kind of like paddish kind of textures. And ultimately, yeah, it's very sort of unapologetic in how accessible it is. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering, as I mentioned, the back and forth with those hi-hats was kind of neat there. I like how the vocals are presented and that they maintain presence regardless of the upper register kind of stuff going on. I think, again, it's a track where a lot of the dynamic range is compositional, where we kind of take away the bass or like the guitars or the synths at some point and just allow things to be either ear candy-ish or allow the groove of the bass and drums to kind of pull us along there. Ultimately, sort of like quite understated, but nonetheless very sort of interesting to listen to. I enjoyed my time with it. Good song. Good song. Though I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as other tracks like No Ordinary Love or Kiss of Life. In fact, I think at this point, for me as a reviewer, it's one of those situations where I don't know if I'd listen to this as a general thing outside of this review. Not that I think it's bad music, because it's great music. I appreciate the musicality of it. It's just like, I think I'm so burnt out with endorphins that and dopamine that I kind of need high intensity stuff to kind of kick my teeth in a little bit to really get like uppity about stuff. But nonetheless, I think if you're listening to like an album where you want to really sort of like chilled, kind of relaxed flow and approach to it, this is definitely it. Definitely it. Wonderful stuff. But we've got Pearls, track number 7. I mean, I'm reading the lyrics at the moment. You can kind of tell how they correspond to the really...
There is a woman in Somalia scraping for pearls on the roadside. There's a force stronger than nature, keeps her will alive. This is how she's dying. She's dying to survive. I don't know what she's made of. I would like to be that brave. She cries to the heaven above.
Wonderful belt.
There's a stone in my heart. She lives a life she didn't choose. It hurts like brand new shoes.
Great line there.
Hurts like brand new shoes.
Very clever lyrics. The juxtaposition between Sade's position and the woman in Somalia's is, yeah.
There is a woman in Somalia. The sun gives her no mercy. The same sky we lay under burns her to the bone. Long as afternoon shadows is gonna take her to get home. Each grain carefully wrapped up, pearls for her little girl.
Fantastic response.
There is a stone in my heart. She lives in a world like brand new shoes. Hurts like brand new shoes.
And scene. I mean, it's really kind of depressing music, isn't it? It's really depressing if I'm honest. Like, that doesn't mean it's bad. Like, I don't mind it at all. But like, you listen to the subject matter talking about the self-awareness Sade has of her, position that Sade is in versus the one in Somalia, and how they kind of cry up to the same God, and the same sun burns them. And especially the comparison to the Hurts Like Brand New Shoes part, it's just because you can't relate to it. You can't relate to it. Potentially, we can't relate to it, I'm not sure. And I think that for Sade, it's her protesting the fact that this person has to go through those difficulties as well, because just life is not fair. Very, very clever music though. Really, it's a poignant vocal performance there from Sade. Incredibly poignant. We have a musician here who, when they express themselves, they are really calling out those belts that we have. And the Storm in My Heart part is just crushing, because you know that they feel how difficult it is to sort of put these pieces together. And we have these sort of signature melodies there that are, we recognize them when we go between parts and sort of repeat them. Very, again, fundamentals adhered to with the actual vocal performance itself, no complaints whatsoever. Just how we go from so loud with our belts to so quiet there, kind of knowing exactly how to control our range. It's just very clever.
There's a storm in my heart.
And we're not even sort of like doing a whole lot of vibrato, sort of like crazy stuff. It's just when we do have that occasional flutter, it's like, oh yeah, no, we're really feeling this. And it's the note choices and how they integrate with a lot of those string sections. So the strings are really important here, you know. The hallelujah part that we do in this part here. And we have the strings call and respond to that. They kind of sing their own kind of like version of that, and then we go back to Hallelujah before that final part. It's just really clever chemistry between the different elements within the track. I mean, it's 4 minutes 33, which is outside of 2 to 4 minute sweet spot, and it really is a slow burn. It's very much a track where you have to, at this point, sort of accept that we are going to be talking about some heavy subject matter. And if you go right back to the start of the piece, there's nothing. It's just the quietest little sort of string section growing in size there, almost like the storm in the heart is the string section rising up to the challenge. And to have like the kind of courage to put a track out that takes that long to get into the main part of it is very cool. Like, we're not allowing ourselves to get too wound up in what we assume the track needs to do at a certain point in time. We're just saying, you know, it's objectively, you know, creatively, I want this track to kind of take its time to build, and we don't need to cater to what the listener expects or needs at the stage.
She's made of.
I think we just typically, for most of it, we simply have the strings in different sections and different sort of like iterations, right? That's really all it is. And just that, you know, the use of the cello there for the buzz and the low range is a great sort of like alternate for the bass. And I think it was a really sensible idea for Sade to not need to have an entire band here. You could have potentially had it to sort of link back sort of like structurally or layer wise, stylistically to the piece. But I think here we simply wanted to illustrate the darkness of the situation we're in, the struggle, the difficulty there. It's like the world's smallest violin, except it's not just the world's smallest violin. It's an entire string section just discussing something completely justified. And we have these fluctuations of the dynamic range, the intensity of these different string sections, and they rise and they fall there. And it's just very dramatic and sort of terse. But at the same time, it makes sense because of what we're talking about. We understand at the point where they do fluctuate, it kind of captures you off by surprise a little bit. Like they measure for the most part what Sade is doing on the microphone, and we simply are left to sort of appreciate just how we've just had that change in pace and angle instrument compositionally this late into the game there, with a lot of the pre-established instruments not needing to be present because we're good enough for 4.5 minutes with just 2 bits. You know, it's a wonderful acoustic performance. I feel like the way we sort of niche these different string parts and their various sort of ranges and respective rhythms and stuff like that is tremendous. I like how free-flowing and kind of thought-provoking it is. And the use of the vibrato and the warble and the kind of tremble of it is palpable, man. And we just fade out at the end. I mean, this has 100 million plays. And that it is about someone struggling to survive, picking up pearls on the side of on the roadside. There's a force stronger than nature keeps her will alive. It's just, this is how she's dying. She's dying to survive. Yeah, I actually think as a closing comment on this, just before we go into the thematics, because clearly we're minor key oriented there, and we're not trying to rise above it. I just feel like it would have been a bit disingenuous potentially to have said, hey, let's make a major song about subject matter like this. Sade clearly cares about it. But just, you know, this is how she's dying. She's dying to survive. Don't know what she's made of. I would like to be that brave. She cries to the heavens above. It's clear to me that at this point, Sade is like, actually, yeah, I realize some of the stuff I have, like how my life compares to this. And I just realized how I cannot necessarily, but arguably relate to it. I don't know enough about Sade to be able to sort of talk about it, just by the way it's been phrased by Sade in this track. Yeah, the lyrics are wonderful. I mean, it's dismal. It's uncomfortable. It's awful. I don't think things have really changed over the last 34 years, but 34 years, but nonetheless, wonderful music. It's compelling. The studio recording, mixing, mastering again, just with the strings, the fluctuation. I've said fluctuate a lot. Dynamic range is there, captured between the low and higher parts of the string section there. It decorates the stereo field and the frequency spectrum really neatly. Know where the resonances. The vocals are nice and sort of like present with the reverb tails and stuff on them as well. Ultimately, very well done, very classy. No complaints, lots of love for that. This track from Sade titled Pearls. Good. Good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. Okay, so what have we got next? We have got Bulletproof Soul, track number 8. Let's do it. Oh, back with the keys and bass and drums.
I was so in love with you. You rarely see a love that true. Wasn't that enough for you? Wasn't that enough for you? I would climb a mountain. I wouldn't wanna see you fall. Rock climb for you and give you a reason for it all. You kept on thinking you were the only one. Too busy thinking love is a gun. Hit me like a slow bullet, like a
great call and response with the saxophones here.
Took me some time to realize it. You kept on thinking you were the only one. Too busy thinking love is a gun.
Brutal.
I know the end before the story's been told. It's not that complicated, but you're gonna need a bulletproof soul. You kept on thinking you were the only one.
I kind of find myself getting lost in his music at this point. I'm quite used to it.
Too busy thinking love is a gun.
Could also be that it's like 30 degrees in the room I'm in at the moment. I really need to get a bit of fan.
I know the end before the story's been told. It's not that complicated, but you're gonna need a bulletproof soul.
Oh, it's nice to have a bass solo at this point. We haven't had one yet.
You a trigger happy baby. Want me let me free. It's not that complicated, but you're gonna need a bulletproof soul. We got it, but you got all the trouble you need.
There's a push to some of those kicks.
Came in like a lamb, but I intend to live like a lion. Hit me like a slow bullet. Hit me like a slow bullet.
Another fade out at the end. Right. Crazy. So, slow bullet. Bulletproof soul. Slow bullet. To be fair, it is a lyric. Bulletproof Soul by Sade. What do we think this is about? Second to last track for today, I think. Yeah, before Mermaid. Really different song to the previous one there. We've had a variety box kind of approach to this album. We'll speak about it at the end. I do think it's effective. You know, the different sides of love. I like that at this point of the album, Sade is less about, hey, I really need this person in my life. I can't live without them. I'm struggling. And now they're more like, you know, you're going to need a bulletproof soul, you know. You kept on thinking you're the only one too busy thinking love is a gun. You know, Sade is basically saying, I may have been a lamb walking in, but I am not going to be overwhelmed this time. You're going to need to be able to kind of cope with me being brave enough, an independent woman, and sort of being able to sort of like take care of myself, you know. So I think basically there is a need for an acceptance of the change in dynamic here in Sade's words. And I like that. I think that the need for being stoic in love within reason, not becoming an absolute fortress, but allowing yourself to sort of take care of yourself emotionally and sort of be able to regulate and sort of not take people's BS is very important. So I think ultimately that's a really nice song. I think the idea behind it is compelling, really effective. So outside of that, I feel like the vocal performance in this is that similar kind of approach that Sade has throughout the majority of their sort of vocal takes. And we have the saxophone in the background there as a similar kind of accompaniment for a lot of this track, like sort of reinforcing some of the melodies that Sade puts forward there. It's very kind of dreamy. Even though there's a bit of aggression and kind of like push behind it, it's not super overwhelming or intense. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I would climb a mountain for you. I wouldn't want to see you fall, rock climb for you and give you a reason for it all. Yeah, okay. Yeah, she's asking, wasn't that enough for you there? We're really trying to sort of question why they sort of took us for granted in the first place there. It's almost conversational parts, which I think is effective. We got very sort of safe vocal harmonies and such like that. Occasionally going up to the head voice, usually around that mid-range there. Do we have male vocals as well, like harmonies? I think we might do. I might be wrong though. We might have an additional vocalist involved there, kind of like we did with track number 2. If that's the case, that's fine there. The different perspectives of love and the sort of different dynamics of the relationship, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I actually do think that's actually a constant throughout it, actually. I've just noticed that. There's that undercurrent to the male sort of harmony there that, if I'm not mistaken, I could be tripping. It's very kind of subtle, but I do like, if that's a deliberate idea, like the different perspectives, that's cool. 5 minutes 24 is a long track though, I think the risk that we run into at this part of the album is that I'm starting to zone out because I'm used to what we've heard. Like, it's a very relaxing, pleasant, interesting album to listen through, don't get me wrong. And we have like the bass is more active in the low end there. I like that it sort of like navigates the root notes and there's a bit more sort of like pronounced in some of the fret ranges and stuff. It doesn't sort of just play the ones, like it goes, like it's a bit more active here, and as well as it has been in previous tracks. And we have that kind of 1-2 chord progression as well going on with the jazzy extended chords with the piano as well. The saxophone plays majors and minors, sort of works neatly around the modes of any sort of apparent parallels and sort of typical chords, and has some sort of blues scale phrasings as well, which are nice with a bit of dynamic range to that. I think the keys as well add a nice sort of resonant kind of chorusy glow on the sides there. They're just very pretty to listen to there. So it's like, I don't know if we necessarily fully communicate the kind of frustration we have within the instrumental parts there. But I think it's more about the style we're going for. It's like a sleepy nighttime conversation. And like, again, the cymbals, the kick, snare, and sort of drum patterns are fine. We have a nice sort of sense of groove there with the chord note accent overall there, with some syncopated offbeats, like with the kicks and stuff, and crashes as well to accent certain transitions. But it's just meant to sort of be kind of very sort of somber. And it's kind of I wouldn't lie, Bulletproof song might be the weakest bit of the album for me. I was hesitating between this album and a sophomore album because of how Love Deluxe is a bit weaker towards the end. Yeah, I kind of felt like I was zoning out a little bit. I think that it could have needed a bit more edge to it. Like, I'm not trying to just say positive things for the sake of it. I'm trying to review it. And well, we have an 808 there. I suppose there's an 808 synth bass in the low and then in the doom part, but there's not a lot within this track that really sort of like stuck out to me. I'm gonna do the kind of typical reactor kind of. I'm not sure if anything really kind of jumped out at me. In the sense that I'm used to how it sounds now. I don't know how the last track is gonna go. That'll be interesting to see how we sort of like roll with that one. I think mainly the lyrics and the change in direction to orient towards that is probably the thing that kind of is meaningful to me. But yeah, honestly, just a very kind of like pleasant chord progression, bass line, tight percussive performance there across the kit. Gave a platform to Sade to sort of sing more. And yeah, no, it's good. Thematically, it's kind of melancholic, I suppose. It's kind of bittersweet. It's not necessarily happy or sad. It's kind of neutral. I think it's almost asking the question of whether or not the person they're talking to is going to accept this new kind of like dynamic within the relationship or not. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering, vocals, again the keys, saxophone, bass, drums, etc. They're all, you know, put forward neatly within the frequency spectrum in the stereo field. Music surrounds you in the headphones, nice and loud, bit of pumping there with the bass and then the drum parts. It should be good. You really love Mermaid though, especially when I close my eyes listening through it. There's no need to look at the lyrics either. That's cool. Well, we're going to do Mermaid then. Track number 9 for today. Okay, I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to play along with it, okay? It's opening up. I love the sound design to it. I mean, I think this is wonderful. This is a nice fitting into the album. It's a very surreal way to end an album when we've had so much of it being vocal oriented. I don't mind it. I think it's really neat. I do agree with you, Eli. I think that's a fantastic track. It's so refreshing after a lot of the subject matter we've had. It's the way that I interpret Mermaid is it's basically someone after they got their bulletproof soul, effectively just feeling like they can be their beautiful selves and just sort of, I suppose, vibe with their femininity and just not overcomplicate things. It's I don't think we needed to have words for this one. I don't think lyrics would have been helpful towards it. I think in actuality, the really cool thing about this was that because there was a lack of vocals, I think it actually forced or at least encouraged Sade and everyone else involved to do a lot more with the surrounding instruments. I think that was really clever, you know. I mean, if we go right to the start of the track, there's nothing for a few seconds. And you have that slow build there, that crescendo. And this is why, Eli, you were talking about closing your eyes. It's why it's so cool is that you kind of, there's this pregnant pause at the start where nothing is happening. And you're like, what is happening? What am I gotten myself into? Especially after Bulletproof Soul. And you just immediately kind of got assimilated with multiple mid-range textures, some kind of clicky parts, other kind of kind of a bass with like a filter, kind of like a really kind of fun, kind of quirky tone to it as well. It's kind of cute sounding. And the instrumental field just fills up with all these different elements in such a short form time factor, man. And it's just a very pleasant arpeggiated response there, where a lot of the time with previous tracks we've had chords there. Splitting these up into dum 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 kind of makes it easier to digest and less sort of like predictable and constant. And you have like stuff going between the sides of the stereo field, like the wah pedal parts there, like wow wow, kind of like it's just fun bits of ear candy alongside that main motif there. Because of a lack of vocals here, they've really felt the need to add as kind of fit a lot of different things in within short form factors, and sort of not have anything sort of sit too long there. It's just fundamental foundations 101 for instrumentals, you know, absolutely. And if there are bits that are put forward outside of the main sort of progressions or arpeggios there, they typically are within key or diatonic there without being too clashy or anything like that. There are some question chords or things included there to sort of make you kind of ponder what's going on there. But we typically roll with the kind of extensions that we've had throughout the majority of the album so far, without any sort of harsh textures or tones. To be fair, that we have those kind of noisy kind of rushes, kind of like waves going over us, and you can kind of imagine being in the water and being amongst the waves, and there's a wonderful glow to those keys and those synth pads there, and the strings and the way they sort of resonate there. It's very pretty sounding music because of the sevenths and ninths and other extensions, but also because of the instruments chosen. I think that the mixture of different guitar leads and the flutes and the pan flutes and other things, the kind of breathiness of that, as well as the kind of tightness of the instrument performance and the intricacy of the rhythmic texture devices put forward, and also the through composed nature of the piece with a lack of verses and choruses, make for a very sort of like interesting song. And we have a lot of those kind of textures like the saxophones and stuff that we had prior to the piece there. So it's kind of like a culmination of all the different things we had before coming together to sort of say hi to you. And it's just great, man. It's just awesome. Like, you can go to a different part of this track and have a different experience there. This is one of the few songs in the album where I feel like you can go back and listen through it multiple times and have a different time with it. I think that that's the kind of danger of an album like this, is with Bulletproof Soul, I see that Mermaid has less listens and would have thought based on that, oh, maybe Mermaid isn't as good as Bulletproof Soul, and I wasn't really sure about Bulletproof Soul in the first place, but then again, you've just got to try each of the tracks if it's a variety box and get your own kind of fill of it, eh? The first time I listened to Mermaid was when I had to wake up before dawn for a really early flight leaving Japan. The song felt like witnessing the city waking up. Absolutely, I can see, and that's a successful song. That is a successful song when you vividly imagine something, and that's the beauty of instrumental music, is that it's so almost infinitely subjective to people. No one is going to have the exact same flow or approach to it as you will, especially depending on, again, when you're listening to it, where you're listening to it, how you're listening to it, etc. But just with the kind of wind kind of flowing us out, the waves rushing outwards, etc., you finish the track not really sure how to take what you've heard from Sade immediately, but it gives you food for thought. It's like you kind of wonder how, like, we have similar approaches to progressions, with the major learning being positive, I think, because we're, again, celebrating being a mermaid, again, exploring our sort of sense of self and our identity. Walking along the seashore listening to this was also very sensational too, as if you're anticipating that imaginary mermaid somewhere behind the horizon. Absolutely. I think it's a mixture of that and also the playfulness of it, the excitement, the exploration, because of all the stuff they throw at you compositionally. It's just very cool. It's just very neat. I feel like it's a shame that this is so late within the album. I feel like this, but then I get why Bulletproof Soul is there, because it's that kind of moment of, actually, no, I'm not going to take this from this person, and you're going to have to follow by my rules after we've been chasing them for such a long time. So I get it. I get structurally from the album perspective why they would have put this track at the last time. But thematically, very effective with the way they do things with the you can tell I'm getting tired because my brain's starting to go well, we're doing well. It's just nice to have a peaceful song to resolve on. Again, I think after the turmoil we've gone through, like, lyrically throughout this album, just for Mermaid to sort of allow us to sort of digest is great, very sensible. It celebrates a lot of the previous ingredients in different tracks and arrangements, and leaves us feeling confident. And if we want to listen through the album at some point, we are refreshed to hear Sade's vocals. And it just also shows the final note that Sade is comfortable writing music as well as singing on top of it. Studio recording, mixing, and mastering. Fantastic use of different panning of different elements there, represented things, nowhere resonant frequencies. Although I suppose the kind of wind of the whoosh kind of sounds that we have there are more kind of like you can feel them, like there's an emphasis of those and a push in certain parts, but it's done in a way where you kind of, again, feel the music moving around. And there's all this stuff kind of swimming around you in your head, and filtering and chorus and other fun effects chains that kind of make it sound like the music is underwater. There's playing around with the frequency spectrum there when things kind of open up there. It sounds like the sun is coming up, as you mentioned, Eli. There is automation of dynamic volume going up there at the start there as the music grows, and then there's fade outs at the end there as it kind of fades away. As nice and loud without being too compressed. Just an excellent song. Excellent song. I want to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Although I'm not going to go big, I suppose. I should actually go big. Here we go. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this album from an Actum Sade titled Love Deluxe. In this section, we're going to be providing an overall song analysis from vocals through to production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and then finally my general thoughts from a listener's perspective. But first of all, what do we think this album is about? I think for Sade, this album is about a variety of different ways of, yes, wide, it's like this big, wide Logan. With a new studio room in the background there. You got the big room now because we moved house, which is nice. There you go. There you go. It's up now. There we are. So I think this album is about all the different ways that Sade considers love, from love being extraordinary, to wanting people to not feel pain that they love, to not being able to love people more, the love of each other, the feeling of the difficulties they've gone through, whether through like loving ourselves, the kiss of life, yeah, the cherish the day, pearls, you know, like the love of other people around you, trying to sort of like show sympathy for them, and looking at our own life and how we, you know, Bulletproof Soul, telling the other person that we don't want to deal with their stuff anymore, and that we need to know what's real, and that we are going to be taking care of ourselves. And then finally, I think Mermaid is self-love again. It's just kind of appreciating ourselves and our own identity and being sort of proud of that. I think Sade explores these different types of love in a way that's very mature and sophisticated. We show great vocal technique, very comfortable across the head and chest voice. Great use of melodies and harmonies with some sort of backing vocalists, I think, at certain points as well in tracks 2 and like 8, if I'm not mistaken, there to show both sides of the relationship potentially. It's great to listen to Sade primarily because of how soft and soothing her voice is. It's very, like conversational. We show vulnerability, fragility at times. It can be very tender. We occasionally belt and go into upper range, but ultimately a lot of it's in that kind of mid-range where it's more sort of like accessible and kind of easy listening, so to speak. It's never uninteresting. I mean, aside from potentially Bulletproof Soul, I think with Bulletproof Soul, it was more the overall sort of composition, the arrangement of it, where I'd already listened to quite a lot of Sade's music and it just wasn't as special for me. I kind of wonder whether in the deluxe edition, Bulletproof Soul was like an extra track people hadn't heard. So, yeah, it's I think maybe that it was a new song for people who were already familiar with the original album, so therefore, like that was new for them. I think that if you had heard the album and then wanted to listen to that new song, it would potentially have been more impactful. And I kind of also understand the placement of it, even if I'm not necessarily a massive fan of the track, primarily because of how it resolves after all the chasing after people we did earlier on. Not gonna lie, with how Deluxe has been used in today's album names, I thought the album was named Love Deluxe when I first learned of it, but it really was a deluxe experience. Love is not romantic only. I mean, you have like 7-minute tracks. They're huge. I mean, structurally, these are some big, big songs. For the most part, I don't think they overstayed their welcome. Typically had verses and choruses and instrumental sections, lots of different solo sections. There were string parts and saxophone solos and guitar solos. There's even a bass solo at one point. I don't even think I spoke about the bass solo. I think the bass solo, if I'm not mistaken, was in Bulletproof Soul. I didn't talk about that at the time. I thought it was great to have a bass solo, so I'm making up for lost time now. I like that it riffed off of a sort of a main sort of motif or pattern there, had little tails and adjustments there. I like that the bass had its own sort of identity within the track. I dig that, especially because the bass is so prominent throughout a lot of these different tracks. We have these fun little kind of 8th and 16th note grooves and sort of passages that are consistent through some tracks, and they add a sense of core identity to the piece there, alongside many of the sort of 8th and sort of quarter and 16th note patterns across the different acoustic and electric drum patterns and samples there, with occasional hand drums as well for syncopated sub-layer kind of percussive elements there in certain bits, either the entire time or in certain parts. The percussion's well developed. We explore the hi-hats, kicks and snares and crashes. Don't really do too much sort of tom stuff, though I think that's where the hand drums come in for a bit of melodic percussion there, I suppose. Interesting clicks and claps and other points, certain elements as well there. Nice reverb tails and some of the crashes, so that things kind of like, and we also, again, the bass though, going back to the bass after the percussion, because they're equally important there. The bass just doesn't rely on the root notes. It explores its modes and scales and creates different melodies there because of its range. Nothing else is challenging it. Ultimately, just very satisfying to listen to. Great flow, nice and tight. Just very effective performance there. The guitars that we have there are typically the kind of like the light, kind of chuggy stuff like No Ordinary Love. I think there was a song, Kiss of Life, potentially Like a Tattoo. We had like a kind of, I could be wrong as well, I apologize if that's the case. We had like some flamenco or nylon string guitars there, playing some arpeggios, or sort of like, I think that was the case in Mehmet as well. Playing some sort of lead passages there that were either off of the minor or majors or the harmonic or melodic minors there. We explored our extensions well, especially when arpeggiating. And I think it was just a very kind of pleasant experience listening to those strings, primarily because nothing was ever too aggressive. It had an interesting kind of light meter going on with the bass parts. I mean, the bass would sometimes be in rhythmic unison with the vocals and rise up and down with it. Same with the guitar there. Volume of the guitar was just a fantastic sort of lead element with occasional sort of bluesy style kind of lead passages with the scale, such as in Feel No Pain there. But it was often ear candy-ish when it wasn't supportive. Very well fleshed out throughout. Not overplayed either. The keys are another really important part of this track there. Typically an extension device there, playing those kind of jazzy chords there. We do occasionally harmonize and have our right hand doing fun little sort of like sub melodies or sub leads. You know, it's very pleasant, nice sort of chipper tone to it. Occasionally the keys are a bit more sort of like low key there. There's some sort of Hammond organs as well for a bit of wobbly kind of vibrato and oscillation there. The synth pads that we have are very kind of present there, and I like the warmth and the glow that they add to the mix there. Oftentimes they come in with the vocals, especially some tracks with the lacquer drums, and they just make them sound huge. And they fill the mid part of the frequency spectrum really neatly and explore the stereo field there. There's instruments like the hi-hats, for example, going back to the drums, they go backwards and forwards in the stereo field there. It's an interesting sort of like tone and interesting kind of like a way of approaching the presentation of those. I think it's equally production, to be fair. The string sections, I think there was one track, I'm not mistaken, where basically the entire track, I think it was Pearls, if I'm not mistaken, was string sections the entire time there, full cello all the way up to violin. Wonderfully done there. Great sort of flutter and tension to those. They do come in other parts, I think, such as, again, the end of No Ordinary Love. But yeah, the strings are very soulful and orchestral, and they need to be. Very much a situation where they know their place and will not overstep boundaries. And I like that they overlap each other. Even in Pearls, you know, you had the lows, occasionally some highs. Not out of place. And what am I missing? Drums, bass, guitar, keys, synths. There were some flutes in Mermaid. There were some interesting sort of flute melodies there that were kind of pretty sounding, and they were presented neatly as like a bit of ear candy. There are lots of ear candy-ish elements there as well. Saxophone. The saxophone also there, nice, very comfortable in its range there. And it was either cool and responding or playing alongside vocal takes there. It never interfered or tried to overwhelm the listener there. There are lots of elements where they are kind of quieter on purpose to add a sense of depth and dimensionality to the recordings and productions, and I think that was very clever there, just allowing those things to kind of like lead you in there, and then the vocals take you out there. And so ultimately, we just got a bunch of really talented performers that I'm not sure how much of the Sade personally recorded instrumentally. But people involved here clearly knew their instruments well. They knew how to get the best out of them. There was dynamic range, things went the same loudest the entire time. And just thematically, we explore a wide variety of different major and minor seventh, major seventh sort of dominance and extensions with the ninths. And then the bluesy kind of scales, the dominant, you know, the harmonic and melodic minors. We typically tried to present intervals and chord progressions that were not abrasive or rough to listen to. We had some songs where it just went backwards and forwards between the parallel majors. Other songs we had key changes and sudden shifts when the vocals came in or when the pads came in. We had a fundamental understanding of chord theory and harmonies, and we knew to not have them too constant all the time. And we had, you know, Sade is the focal point for the vast majority of the time, which is fine considering it's her album. I like the fact that we had all these different solo sections. I also like the fact that we managed to add all this kind of like intellectual kind of music in, and that it was exciting. It was interesting for the most part. Again, I think I was starting to tune out a little bit with Bulletproof Soul, but aside from that, I just feel like we fleshed them neatly. And again, some of these tracks were again 6-7 minutes there. There was no filler. There's no filler. Not out of place. Studio recording, mixing, mastering. We took, just to conclude on the themes, because I'm not going to talk about the tracks individually, but they typically matched the subject matter. Again, when we were talking about singing the blues, we had the blues guitar. The string section sounded like a massive sort of like cinematic kind of like extension there. You can kind of imagine a gravity situation. And a lot of the tones and textures used in Mermaid sounded like you're underwater and were very kind of like tropical sound. It's very, very neat. But the studio recording, mixing, and mastering was wonderful. Vocals, guitar, bass, drums, strings, keys, saxophone, all bits of air candy, etc. Everything was captured wonderfully, whether in the main sort of subleads there, no weird issues, no weird resonances in the frequency spectrum. Music's surrounded you nice and wide in the stereo field. Vivacious in its presentation and approach there. We purposefully filtered certain elements there to sort of be more low-key or high-key depending on what we wanted. There was automation with the panning of elements within the mix, as well as automation with the way things rose within the with the volume perspective. Oh, cool, thank you. Awesome. Thank you for that, Eli. I appreciate that. And while Sade is the name of the vocalist. That's awesome. So that's good. So everyone involved did a tremendous job. I'm really happy with it. Again, this I just don't know, especially when you get the album art. And this is fine, by the way. I don't have an issue with the album art being this, but you just have one person. So I'm just not sure who's involved in it. Sometimes people have their name and then they have like nondescript people in the background working with them. I'm not sure, but that information is helpful. It's really good. And yeah, generally nice and loud, pumping. Bus compression limiting was handled. Aside from when there were no drums, in which case there was no pumping. Only applicable constructive critique for me after this commercial grade record is simply that I just Bulletproof Soul was like enough of a similar thing to me with previous tracks, aside from the subject matter, that I didn't necessarily think I appreciated it. But that is more of a subjective thing. I think on its own, it totally works. I appreciate and respect the musicality of this album. General listener's perspective, I think this is a very unique style of music. I haven't really listened to music which is so comfortable and trying to be sort of like low key. It's kind of sleepy, baby making like love music there that I think is something to be celebrated and lauded, especially considering the success that they've had. I just appreciate, I understand why people love it. I think there is a need for music like this. I also want to say, again, with Eli, what you mentioned that love is not romantic only, I think that this is the literal exact way you need to approach subject matter like this. Love can be a variety, a variety of things. I don't feel like we could have done a better job of exploring this within this form factor of 9 tracks. And I'm glad that the end of the song was Mermaid with Sade loving herself. My favorite track off of this was Mermaid, although I have to show love to or No Ordinary Love for the fact that it was 7 minutes 20 and as compelling as it was. And thank you for watching my review of this album from an ex named Sade, titled Love Deluxe. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show them some love via their various social medias and our Spotify page. Thank you to Eli for sending me through this album for your annual album review. I had a great time with it. It's been a long review, a lot longer than I thought it would be. There was just a lot to talk about, I suppose. I'm terrified of how long it would have been if it was closer to an hour, if there were like 15 songs. I really have to work on the way that I communicate. But I also don't feel like I could have said much more about it. And I also tried to be more succinct about it, and it's kind of struggled with that instead. I agree that it was minimalist. In a sense that I think that if it was explosive, that would have been the obvious thing to be explosive. I agree with that. I think minimalist was effective. It allowed to be able to appreciate the beauty of everything else. But yeah, thank you for sending through this album. I really appreciate it. And I got you a Tame Impala track done last night as well. I don't know if you're watching this. I think I saw Blue Dinner Box earlier. I've got another Patreon video to do later on today. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. It was awesome. It was good to review this. It was good practice for me as well in long form factor. I'm not going to be here next weekend. I think I'm away next weekend, so there won't be a live stream next weekend, but it'll be one the week after. And I really need to schedule the live streams in advance so that people know. I am going to have a nap after this and then look into that. Stay cool. Stay safe. Please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need to help more than ever thought of crazy stuff going on in the world. I remember if you want monthly custom music review videos, as well as an annual album review, feel free to go check out the Patreon. If you want to join the Discord just to chat or just to sort of talk about more music stuff, or for the schedule for the live streams, go to the Discord. And then if you haven't subscribed to the channel, feel free to do so. But stay cool, Shredders. You enjoy the weekend too, Eli. Thank you very much. And Spider Hands out. 3, 2,